Nicola's Ghost, written by John Kitchen, narrated by Joe Ashe. Chapter 1. Reluctant Partners. Stephanie hadn't been to Nicola's before. In fact, she didn't even know where Nicola lived. But as she followed her up the hill, it became clear she didn't live on the estate where the rest of them lived. She was leading her away from town, towards the part of Gospbridge the locals called Millionaire's Row. If she lived up there, Stephanie thought, what was she doing at Gospbridge Primary School? All the kids up here went to private school, and she could hardly believe it when Nicola led her into her garden, because they were heading for the most imposing house in the whole road. It was massive, with curtains of ivy clinging to the walls and white-framed windows peering darkly between the growth. There were grey-gabled roofs and a pillared porch with an imposing oak door. But as she stepped inside, she shivered. Something about the place made her feel uneasy. The hall felt cold and unfriendly. It had a high ceiling, and there were stairs sweeping from right and left into a big central staircase. The floor was a tessellation of dark wooden slabs, and the smell of polish seemed to permeate every corner. Wherever you moved, the sounds echoed with chill reverberation. Nicola led the way into the living room, and that was just as bad. All the furniture was dark oak, and although it was highly polished, the room had an eerie gloom about it. The walls had pictures, like an ancient art gallery. There was a carpet, but it looked old and jaded. It would have been expensive, Persian probably, or Indian, and hand-woven. It didn't fit like the carpets in her own sitting room. It was skirted with polished floorboards, and everything about the place added to the austere coldness. She shivered again. She didn't want to be here, and she wouldn't have been if it wasn't for Mr. Gupta, their teacher. This time last week, Nicola Sharpe and her weird house didn't feature in her life at all. Then, last Friday, when they'd been planning their science topic, Mr. Gupta had come out with it. "Stephanie Topham," he said, "I'd like you to work with Nicola Sharpe this term." Nicola wasn't like a normal kid. She never mixed, and she hardly ever spoke to anyone. Stephanie glanced at her mates and saw the look of horror on their faces. She saw Becca roll her eyes skywards. Then she heard a voice of defiance that left her speechless. "Have I got to, sir?" It caused a ripple to go right through the classroom, because it was Nicola who had spoken. Nicola, who never argued, never answered back, who only existed in her own world of silent isolation, was staring at Stephanie, her feline eyes blazing and her pale face drawn. "Most certainly you've got to," Mr. Gupta said. She glared again, but she didn't say anything more. All she did was retreat into her own private bubble, and during break, Becca and Ajit, Stephanie's two best friends, talked her into going back after school to tell Mr. Gupta just how much she didn't want to work with Nicola Sharpe. But when she did that, all he did was twist the knife. He said she was on the school's council and it was her duty. Not only should she work with Nicola, she should become her friend. And that was so unfair. She could hardly believe he'd said it. She was in such despair when she got home. It took the whole weekend to bring her round. It was her brother Rob who finally persuaded her. He said there was no point in fighting Mr. Gupta. She should see it as a challenge and try to turn Nicola into something that was halfway human. By Monday morning, she was almost keen to give it a try. When she got to school, the first thing she did was search out Nicola. She was under the birch tree at the far corner of the playground. She always spent her time there, and always she had the same pose. Her hands in her anorak pockets, her eyes staring at the ground, her feet scuffing leaves, a picture of misery and isolation. When Stephanie went up to her, she just froze her out.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?